In this episode, we're going to take a look at my personal wish list for upcoming G.I. Joe classified figures, so stick around. Hello, fellow dorks and dorkettes, and welcome to Nostalgia Syndrome, and also welcome to G.I. Joe July. My name is Rob, and in this episode, we'll be talking about my personal wish list for G.I. Joe classified figures. It is mind-blowing to think that it's been 4 years already since the first released G.I. Joe classified figure, which was Snake Eyes. And in that time period, they have done upwards of 150 figures. Now that's between different repaints, the retro line, and those special anniversary figures that they have released. So, with 150 figures down, I think the potential is there to add some of my personal favorite characters into the growing classified roster. So, I also want to point out that 3 years ago, I did a wish list video. That was for G.I. Joe July all the way back in 2021. Well, in that list, I did 25 figures that I would love to see in the classified line. And out of those 25, 18 of them were chosen by Hasbro. Now, I'm not going to say that I am a G.I. Joe marketing genius or anything like that, but I think I know how to pick them. So we will see in the future how many of these 20 choices I have picked will become a reality. Oh, and before I forget, if you are noticing that the dialogue is not matching up with the video, that is because I filmed this whole episode last night without plugging the microphone in. So I'm just trying to make the best out of a bad situation, and maybe we'll get a few laughs along the way. You know, like those old school kung fu flicks that we grew up with. So anyway, without further ado, let's get to number 1. Yo, Joe! The first figure on my G.I. Joe classified wish list is the Mortar Soldier Short Fuse. First released in 1982, Short Fuse was my very first G.I. Joe figure ever. So I have a special place in my heart for this character, and I would love to see him done in the more modernized classified style. Now, with what we've seen with some of the other OG 82 characters, Hasbro is playing it safe and simple, and that's all you need. Just the olive drab, the bare basic mortar, and that's it. Give him the helmet with the visor, maybe some extra mortars that could go in his backpack, and there you go. I would love to see it. And honestly, we need the entire original 82 roster in the classified scale. I mean, that's only right. Yo, Joe! Okay, for our second wish list figure, let's just keep the theme of the OG 82 figures going, and I will say a figure that I wish I had when I was a kid was the Laser Rifle Trooper Flash. Like I said, this was one of the original figures from 82, just like Short Fuse. And again, you don't need to get too super fancy. Keep the uniform the same. He has to have the orange, like laser armor, padding, whatever it is. I mean, it was that popped off of the original figure that made me want him so badly. I mean, kind of like Stalker, Snake Eyes, Scarlet, he was different than the rest of them. And it was that orange that separated him from all the other Joes at the time. And yeah, just keep that. And you can even make like a very like analog laser rifle like his original figure came with. You don't need to do anything big and fancy and futuristic. Keep it simple. I mean, that's all you need. Yo, Joe! Now, speaking about figures that jump out at you and look so different than the other ones on the roster at the time. Now, this was one of my favorites as a kid, and I was lucky enough to have him. And he was released in 1984, and this is the Flamethrower Trooper, Blowtorch. And like I said, his uniform at the time was so different than anybody else's, with his yellow and orange padded flame retardant uniform. The other thing that set him aside from everyone else was his helmet with goggles and respirator setup that you had. I think that was one of the reasons why I picked him out when I was lucky enough to, pick out a Joe on one shopping trip. Now, as we've seen with the classified tripwire figure, they can do some really cool things with armor. So you could still do the brightly orange and yellow armor, just make it look a little bit more realistic like the armor that Tripwire comes with. Now, we've also seen that Hasbro can do wonderful things with goggles, but we haven't seen a respirator yet, so it would be pretty cool to see this. So you add all that, you add his awesome blowtorch and backpack tank accessories, and there you go. I mean, that would be an awesome addition to the G.I. Joe roster, and you got to have someone to, fight fire with Torch, since he's going to be released very soon. Yo, Joe! Our next wish list item comes from 1986, and it is the Rescue Trooper Lifeline. I am truly a sucker for the bright colors. Don't ask me why, because when it came to the 90s, I didn't like any of the redesigns of the characters with bright colors then, but for some reason when I was younger, I just absolutely went gaga for it. And Lifeline was definitely one of my favorite characters just from looks alone. I mean, the red with the white boots and the green glasses, I mean, he just looked awesome to me. I know a lot of people do not like him, and I think it has a lot to do with his being a pacifist. Also kind of turns off people, but the figure came with a gun, so do with that what you will. But I think this would be an awesome addition to the classified line, not only because it's one of my favorites, but because having another medic on the team is a good idea. And with the accessories that he came with, they go hand in hand with Doc's, and of course Doc is coming soon. So with Doc's stretcher, you could now have this like respirator, probably like a defibrillator type of medical kit like he has. I mean, inside the very well detailed white medical bag that he has, I mean, you can see that there's, oxygen tanks and things like that. So all they need to do is an awesome medical bag like that with the, respirator that you can plug into it. And I mean, he doesn't really need anything else. You could throw some extra medical equipment in there and you have an awesome figure. Yo, Joe! Okay, our next figure probably has one of the coolest specialty names around. This is the Cobra Knot Astro Viper, released in 1988. Now, the one place the classified line has not gone yet is outer space. And I think the Astro Viper would be a great entry into that world. I love everything about this figure, from his colors to his helmet to his awesome backpack with laser attachments. I mean, this dude has it all. I don't know why, but yeah, I'm just really fond of this character, and I think it would be really cool to see him in a larger scale. I mean, his colors are very realistic and muted, so something that the classified line tends to do, it fits perfectly for. So, I mean, you even make it a deluxe figure and, make the backpack a little bit beefier, a little bit cooler, a little bit more deadly. But I would like to see the classified line go into space eventually with this figure.
Yo, Joe!
Number 6 surprises me because he has such a mundane specialty, and I don't mean any disrespect by that. But this figure is Footloose, and he's listed as just being an infantry trooper. But I feel like this figure and this character is so much more. I mean, he is awesome, from his awesome camouflaged uniform to his helmet that seems to actually have molded in it actual foliage to add to that awesome camo feel. Now, he came with just your basic M16, and he also has an awesome, little law rocket launcher. I mean, he has everything he needs to just get in there, get crazy, get footloose. Yeah, sorry about that. But, yeah, a great figure. He would fit perfectly in the classified line with his very just realistic portrayal of a infantryman. And yeah, like I said, that's one of the things that the classified line loves to do, is give a realistic spin to those classic Joe figures. So right here you go. You can't get any more basic or realistic than Footloose, and he would be an awesome addition to the classified line.
Yo, Joe!
The 7th figure that I would love to see come to the classified line would be the military police figure of Law and his canine companion, Order. They were both released in 1987, and first things first, I would love to see another animal released for the classified line, and I think Order would be awesome. I mean, a giant German Shepherd figure, just like the Junkyard figure, that would be awesome. And surprisingly, Mutt is not listed as a military police canine officer. He's just released as a dog handler. Very odd. Anyway, yeah, big fan of this figure, as with everything on this list. I mean, I love his uniform. I love the blue vest. I love that he comes with a white MP helmet. And he comes with an Uzi. I mean, that's awesome all by itself. And add his nightstick and awesome dog collar for Order. Yeah, you got a great figure. But first things first, I would really love more animals in the classified line. And yeah, a giant German Shepherd figure would be awesome.
Yo, Joe!
Now the 8th figure is the Dreadnought Monkey Wrench from 1986. And first things first, I mean, we need to have the rest of the Dreadnoughts. I mean, we have Buzzer and Ripper already released, and Torch is coming soon. I mean, honestly, some people already have him in hand, but my pre-order has gotten pushed back to the end of August. C'est la vie. Anyway, he fits perfectly with the whole scheme of the Dreadnoughts, with their blue jeans, their boots, their vest, if you will. I mean, I know that's reaching. So, it would be great to have him as an addition to the 3 other Dreadnoughts that are already released. To be honest, other than Zartan, which I was lucky enough when he first came out to get, I didn't get any of the other Dreadnoughts until the 86 line of Monkey Wrench, Zarana, and Xander. And I think maybe Zanzibar came out that year as well. Anyway, so I have a attachment to this character because he was my first to finally join Zartan in the ranks of the Dreadnoks. And yes, his weapon isn't as awesome as some of the other Dreadnoks, but I mean, a trident gun, it looks like the trident launches out, and because there's a little spool at the bottom of like, you know, rope or filament that would go out with it so he could pull people back. So that would be a cool, you know, action accessory to come with the figure, a launching trident. Now, we haven't seen any quote-unquote launching weapons yet, but it would be pretty cool just to have, you know, a little bit of line attached to it that he could, you know, stick it into some G.I. Joe dudes and pull them over to him so he can knock them out or drop one of his mini grenades on him, what have you. Anyway, like I said, I just have an emotional attachment to Monkey Wrench. I know he's probably not a big fan favorite, but I think he's pretty cool.
Yo, Joe!
Our next figure is the Mobile Missile Specialist Fast Draw, released in 1987. Now, he would be a great counter to the Metalhead figure that came out. I mean, that deluxe figure came with multiple rockets and launching effects, and that would be awesome to see with the Fast Draw figure. Now, of course, they would probably make him a little bit more realistic, but as we've seen with the Tripwire figure, they can do some awesome things with body armor. So to give him that big padded, you know, blast proof armor that he wears for a uniform would be great. And we've seen helmets very similar to this in the line already. Just give it a way to raise it up and down, and a, you know, oxygen hose that attaches to the side to his backpack. I mean, don't need much more because we've seen a lot of these things with the Metalhead figure, like I said. So all you need to do is kind of repaint some of those, or, you know, just jury rig them to match the Fast Draw figure a little bit better, like his original 87 figure, and yeah, you're ready to go. And if I need to add this, like everything else, I love this figure. He was one of my favorites as a kid, and I would be absolutely blown away to get him in the classified scale. Deluxe prices and all.
Yo, Joe!
Our 10th figure is a definite guilty pleasure figure, because this is definitely one that will not appear on anyone else's favorite list or classified wish list, and that is the Cobra Grenade Thrower Frag Viper, released in 1989. Now, again, I have an emotional attachment to this character because it was one of the last figures that I ever got from the OG G.I. Joe line when I was a kid. It was one last Christmas in '89 where my parents were still buying me the figures, and believe me, I loved it, but I felt like I was kind of forced to give it up after that point. But anyway, this is a very simple character. I mean, he just wears a like tan brownish bodysuit with blue different highlights and weapons and things like that. Now, the thing I thought was super awesome was his grenade launching apparatus, which is kind of like a highlight launcher thing. I don't know, they do have a name, it escapes me at the moment. But in the game of highlight, it's like what you chuck the balls with. He chucks grenades with that. And it looks like the tube that attaches to that, to his backpack, probably automatically reloads it with more grenades. How awesome is that? He has an awesome helmet to boot. Kind of has an insectoid kind of look to it, and I really dig it. All in all, I really like this character. The hose that attaches to the helmet to the backpack is kind of unwieldy, so I never really used it when I was a kid, but I'm sure they could do something to jazz it up in the classified line. And to top it all off, he has an awesome gun accessory. This like submachine gun, I'm sure it has a more technical name, but it kind of reminds me of like an H&K with the kind of banana clip to it. But anyway, yeah, a guilty pleasure, one that I am sure we will never see, but I'm a fan of the Frag Viper, and yeah, I would love to see it one day.
Yo, Joe!
Now we go from a not so popular character to a very popular character. If you can remember back to the couple episodes that I did discussing the internet's wish list for the classified figure, this character was always at the top of those lists. And this is the Dreadnought Road Pig, released in 1988. This is definitely a fan favorite figure, and I know exactly why, because he's awesome. I mean, he's a hawking dude with a cinder block on an axe handle. He has awesome Road Warrior type aesthetics, and I mean, with his like shoulder pads, with his cod piece, with his haircut, and he also comes with a like wrist launching crossbow that we saw in the second Mad Max movie. I mean, simplistically awesome in every way, shape, and form. Now, we've seen with the classified line that they can make pretty beefy, muscular figures, like the Bazooka figure. But with the upcoming Nemesis Immortal figure, we can potentially see a figure more muscular and bigger than the others. Now, I would hope he would fall somewhere in between those two. But heck, let's make him big and beefy, just like the Cobra Nemesis Enforcer Immortal figure. Cobra La Nemesis Enforcer figure. Or Nemesis Immortal, sorry. But yeah, I would like to see a just huge hawking road pig, same accessories, same haircut, same outfit, just same everything, down to the Anarchy tattoo.
Yo, Joe!
Now my next pick is going to be the Navy SEALs wetsuit, released in 1986. Now, we have a great G.I. Joe underwater frogman in Torpedo, and the G.I. Joe Classified 60th Anniversary Action Soldier Recon Diver is an excellent figure as well. But Wetsuit brings something else to the table, and that is the fanciful nature of G.I. Joe. I mean, first off, he has a great color scheme. I love that sea foam, bluish, green, teal colored wetsuit, and all the awesome yellow highlights, his helmet, and all of his accessories. And he comes with that awesome winged, propelling apparatus that he can use to jet through the water. And he comes with a little flashlight for underwater adventures. So, yeah, top notch. Now, we already have flippers, so just add those on. We already have, the harpoon guns. Throw that in there as well. But the one thing that they could do, give him a removable helmet or an alternative head of, the character that we saw in the cartoon. That would be super awesome. I mean, I love the fanciful colors and nature of this figure. So, not to take anything away from Torpedo or that 60th anniversary figure, but Wetsuit would be an awesome addition.
Yo, Joe!
Again, this is another character that probably will not appear on anyone's wish lists or favorites lists, but I'm a big fan of this figure for some reason. I wish I could tell you why, but this is the Cobra Hostile Environment Trooper Toxo Viper, released in 1988. Now, I love everything from this dude, down to his helmet, to his color scheme, to his weapon. I mean, it is a toxic waste spewing gun, and that's pretty awesome. Now, this dude came out way before the whole environmental trooper spin-off of G.I. Joe that happened in the 90s. So he predates that craziness by a few years. But, I mean, he would fit perfectly with that. And they probably did a, new version of him at that time period. Not 100% sure. I'll have to look into it. Now, he could be a, deluxe figure just from his bulky backpack, his bulky helmet, which would definitely be removable, and his bulky gun. Heck, include some, old school slime with it, and you have a perfect figure that adults and kids would love. So, I mean, simply put, it's just a fun figure, and I really like it.
Yo, Joe!
You know what's funny? I'd be one of the first people to say that I do not prefer the whole day glow neon color 90s G.I. Joe. But I would be first in line to pick up this dude. I am talking about the Laser Trooper Sci-Fi, released in 1986. And believe me, he is neon green to the extreme, and I love it. I am a big fan of this green in particular, as you can tell by my logos and the color of fonts I use a lot. And maybe it was inspired by him, or just inspired by a lot of the awesome glow-in-the-dark toys of the 80s that we grew up with. Either way, he would be so cool in the classified scale, but they have to keep that color. They kind of have to stop that trend of realism and modernization to bring the original sci-fi to life. I mean, it's easy. Give him a backpack, give him a laser rifle, give him a hose that connects the two, and that's all you need. He is a very basic figure with basic accessories, but is so awesome. And of course, we already talked about having Flash, which is a laser rifle trooper himself, but you can't have too many laser rifles on the G.I. Joe team. I mean, that's what the cartoon was all about, lasers flying everywhere. So, yeah, he may not be a fan favorite, but I think he's pretty darn awesome.
Yo, Joe!
It is time for the classified line to have more environmental specialists. And I mean those dudes that can tackle the desert, or in this case, tackle the frozen tundra. We need another snow trooper, and this would be the snow trooper Iceberg, released in 1986. Now, it is criminal that he did not come with more accessories. The dude didn't come with any skis, snowshoes, anything. He didn't even come with a backpack. He just came with a very large rifle, which in itself was pretty awesome. Now again, I'm a fan of this character, and I think it comes down to the color scheme. The stark white with the green and teal highlights, I'm a big fan of. And he just was an awesome figure to begin with. So yeah, it would be great to have another snow trooper to go along with Snow Job. And while we're at it, this is probably for another wish list, but let's get the Polar Battle Bear in classified scale. Now, I have not been able to afford a lot of the classified vehicles, other than a handful of them, less than a handful of them, but I think I would definitely fork out the money for this dude with the Polar Battle Bear. So, put them together in a 2-pack, and I am all about it. But you need to give him accessories, snowshoes, skis, ski poles, backpack, the whole 9 yards that came with Snow Job. He needs it as well. So throw that all together, and I am definitely on board.
Yo, Joe!
Okay, this is another one of my personal top 10 favorite G.I. Joe figures of all time. And I included him in my first wish list video all the way back in 2021. This is the Light Infantryman Hit and Run, released in 1988. Now here's an interesting little bit of trivia. In that video, that wish list video, I don't know who does it at YouTube, but someone chaptered out the video, and each chapter was the character's name. But when it came to Hit and Run, there was no name, it just was Camouflage Overkill. And believe me, that is definitely what Hit and Run is. He is camouflage from head to toe. I mean, his face is camouflage, every stitch of his uniform is camouflaged. And that's one of the things that attracted me to that figure when I was a kid. I mean, camouflage was all the rage when we were kids in the 80s. I mean, growing up on a healthy dose of Rambo, Commando, what have you, we loved camouflage. We loved running around in the woods, draped in camouflage with our Intertech squirt guns or whatever cheap knockoffs we could afford. Anyway, the hit and run figure. What makes him so awesome, other than the camouflage, is his duffel bag that houses a large Bowie knife and yards of string that he could use to scale mountains. Now, I always thought it was weird that he was a light infantryman. I mean, I thought that he would be like a mountain climber like Alpine because of that accessory, but alas, he was not. Coupled that with the awesome, like, again, I'm ignorant on gun names, but I think it's an M14, you know, like the smaller scale M16 that he came with, which, again, was a personal favorite weapon accessory of my youth. So, yeah, he would be an awesome addition, and, I mean, he's kind of realistic in his uniform and his camouflage motif, so it would be easy for them to just blend him seamlessly into the classified line.
Yo, Joe!
This is another figure that was released in 1989 that, again, I have an emotional tie to because it was under the Christmas tree for that last year that I was receiving G.I. Joe figures. Well, as a kid at least. Anyway, this is the Cobra Night Fighter, the Night Viper. Now again, I don't think this dude's on anybody's wish lists or top 10 lists, but I think he was a pretty awesome figure. At the time, the whole night vision goggle thing was super awesome. Now, the one thing that I do not like about this dude was his gun. Now, it was an awesome rifle, but the whole fact that it attached to his leg with those little posts, that was cool, but the fact that it didn't have a way for him to hold it like any of the other rifles, you know, in the toy line, kind of made it suck. Now, he would have to hold it like a realistic rifle, but that's just not the same thing when you're dealing with G.I. Joe figures. Now, again, love the colors, love the accessories other than the gun, so yeah, and he's sorta realistic, so he would fit right in with the Cobra forces in the classified line, but just update the gun, and of course, with a couple of the figures, they have more advanced, modern night vision goggles that would go perfectly with this dude. And, I mean, his helmet was pretty cool, so yeah, not much more to say about that.
Yo, Joe!
Now, our next figure would be to kind of counter the G.I. Joe's inclusion of wetsuit. And this would be, and mind you, he has one of the longest specialty names of any of the G.I. Joe figures, or Cobra in this case, and that is the Cobra Underwater Elite Trooper, parentheses, Demon of the Deep, Hydro Viper. Now, I love this figure. I mean, the whole aspect of his bestial helmet, very draconian looking, and the fact that he has webbed hands. Now, the backstory on these dudes were that they are eels that are more genetically modified to handle the pressures of underwater diving. And yeah, I love the whole aesthetic. I love the color. I mean, the purple kind of pops. The burgundy of his helmet and flippers are also awesome. Again, all you need to do is include the harpoon gun that we have seen with the other figures. Heck, even give him the exact same backpack as the eel figures, but the inclusion of his manta ray pet would be tremendous. You imagine a large-scale, articulated manta ray figure, or devil ray, or whatever? That would be so awesome. I mean, you could even make it that he has like a little, you know, peg on the back that he could attach to the Hydro Viper's back, and, you know, that he could stealthily get behind G.I. Joe lines by just looking like a giant manta ray. I mean, that would be totally awesome. Everything about this figure is totally awesome, and I would love to see him in the classified line.
Yo, Joe!
Okay, this one's going to be simple, and I'm actually quite surprised that he's not part of the classified line already, because of Hasbro's inclusion of the realistic elements of G.I. Joe. And this character would be the Marine Leatherneck. I mean, how realistic can you get? Everything from his uniform to his weaponry to his backpack. I mean, he just screams realism. And on top of that, he was just an awesome character. I loved him in the cartoon. I loved when he would pop up in the comic book. I mean, but the one thing that stood out head and shoulders above anything else with this character was his M16 with the M203 grenade launcher underneath, and that's because of Dutch from Predator. I mean, I was a fan of that gun after seeing that movie, and this figure quickly shot to my, top-tiered list simply because of that. But he's an awesome character. He's an awesome figure, and he's just basic, plain, and realistic. The things that the classified line loves.
Yo, Joe!
Okay, we are going to end this long and indulgent wish list with another guilty pleasure. And I don't care what people say about this character. He has definitely appeared on the stupidest G.I. Joe figures lists time and time again. But to me, he's a classic, and I absolutely adore him. And that is the Cobra Falconer Raptor, released in 1987. I don't know why I love this character so much. I mean, he embodies the wackiness of the G.I. Joe line that I really loved as a kid, and I love now. And, I mean, picture this. This character in a deluxe package with two different types of wings, one being his soft good ones here, like his original figure, and one being a large articulated one, that we've seen from the Marvel line from Hasbro for, Falcon or Vulture or, the Falcon version of Captain America. It would be awesome. Now, add a few different birds to the mix. I mean, give him a version of Freedom, and heck, throw in an evil version of Polly and a couple other birds, all articulated and awesome, and there you go. I mean, give him maybe some awesome, those ninja claw attachments, or claw attachments for his feet, and boom, you have a very awesome character. I mean, heck, you don't even need to change his awesome headdress and domino mask setup. I mean, I think this character is perfect, and I wouldn't change that much. I would only add to the awesomeness. And with that, we've come to the end of my long and indulgent G.I. Joe Classified wish list. Okay, folks, here we are back to the badly dubbed bad video that I shot with no sound. So, I just want to say thank you for hanging out with me for a very long time. Apparently, I had a lot to say about this wish list, so thank you for indulging me in this very indulgent list. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. If you got something to say, please leave a comment. I love reading them, and I love getting back to everyone. And if you're new around here and you enjoyed this, or any of the episodes that YouTube is recommending down below, please hit subscribe. And if you hit that little bell icon, you'll be notified whenever there's new episodes. So anyway, until next time, thank you for watching. Keep being rad, and stay dorky.